Hello everyone, today we are going to discuss about the company final accounts, and in the pro forma of a company final account, or we can say a pro forma of balance sheet as well as profit and loss account, what items should be included and what are the subcategorization of the balance sheet as well as profit and loss account. So let us start. So we are going to discuss about the company final accounts as per the Companies Act 2013, where we have already seen in the last lecture pro forma of balance sheet, where we have seen the equities and liabilities as well as it is subcategorized as shareholder funds, share application money, non-current liabilities, current liabilities, and after that we have seen the assets which are subdivided into two parts, that is non-current asset as well as current assets, where we already discussed about the fixed assets and current assets. Today we are going to discuss about the subcategorization, or we can say a notes or explanatory notes, where we have to see what items are included under the head share capital, what are the part of reserve and surplus and long-term borrowings and other as well as assets. So let us start the first item of balance sheet, that is share capital. So here is the share capital. Under the head share capital, there are certain items which we have to prepare and mention as per the Companies Act 2013. So first one is, for each class of share capital, different classes of perform preference shares to be treated separately. Number of at the number and the amount of shares should be mentioned, which is authorized capital. The the number and amount of shares authorized as well as the number of shares issued, subscribed, and fully paid up, and subscribed but not fully paid up. We have to mention. As you know, the shares are issued in the market which are being subscribed by the people, and amount when they paid full amount to the company, then it is called as fully paid up. And subscribed but not fully paid up, say for example one person purchased the share 100 shares, but he just subscribed, he did not pay the payment, so at that time it is called as subscribed but not fully paid. uh, par value per share, reconciliation of the number of shares outstanding. We have to mention over here the rights and preference shares as well as the some restrictions we have to consider in this note. That is first note, that is share capital. Share in respect of each class in the company held by its holding company or its ultimate holding company, including shares held by or by a subsidiary or associate of the holding company or the ultimate holding company in aggregate. Later on, we have to discuss the shares in the company held by each shareholder holding more than 5%. Then shares reserved for issue under options and contract. Then for the period of 5 years immediately preceding the date as at which the balance sheet is prepared. As well as we have to mention in this note, that is aggregate number and class of shares allotted as fully paid up, as well as by way of bonus and by way of contract. Aggregate number of class of shares, if there is a buyback, it has to be mentioned in this note. Items of any securities convertible into equity shares or preference shares issued along with the earlier date of earliest date of conversion in descending order starting from uh, the such date. Calls unpaid we have to mention here, and forfeited shares also we have to mention in the head, that is share capital. The second note, or we can say the second part of balance sheet, that is reserve and surplus. So under the head reserve and surplus, we have to mention some reserve, that is reserve and surplus shall be classified as, it may be a capital reserve, it may be a capital redemption reserve, it may be a securities premium reserve, debenture redemption reserve, or revaluation reserve, as well as. So under the head reserve and surplus, there are certain items, that is we can see here revaluation reserve, share option, outstanding amount. Other reserves are also there, as well as some surplus, that is balance in the statement of profit and loss, which is disclosing allocations and appropriations such as dividend, bonus shares, and transfer to or from research. So there are some additions and deductions in last balance sheet to be shown under the head under the each of the specified heads. A reserve specially represented by a market as investment shall be termed as a fund. Debit balance of statement of profit and loss account shall be shown as a negative figure under the head surplus. Similarly, the balance of reserve and surplus after adjusting negative balance of surplus, if any, shall be shown under the head reserve and surplus, even if the resulting figure is the negative. So this is the second note of reserve and surplus. The third note is money received against the warrants. If it is there, then we have to mention. Otherwise, we have to see the long-term borrowing. So long-term borrowing shows as long-term borrowing shall be classified as bonds, debentures, term loans or loans from bank, loan from other parties, deferred payment liabilities, deposits, loan and advances from related parties, long-term maturities of finance lease obligations, as well as certain borrowings which have been taken from the company. Then bonds and debentures along with the rate of interest, then particulars of any redeemed bonds, terms of repayment of the terms loan and other loan shall be stated in the long-term borrowings. Then there is next part, that is other long-term liabilities and long-term provisions. In the other long-term liabilities, trade payables are there as well as some other figures are there. In the long-term provisions, the amount shall be classified as provision for employee benefits and other if there is specific nature. After that, the note is short-term borrowings, where short-term borrowings include the loans payable on demand from banks, from other parties, loan and advances from related party, deposits, other loans and advances. Borrowing shall further be classified as secured and unsecured, where loans have been guaranteed by the directors or other. The aggregate amount of such loans under each head shall be disclosed. Period and amount of default as on the balance sheet date in the repayment loans and interest shall be specified separately in each case. So this is the short-term borrowings. After that, some other current liabilities are there, where we have seen the current liabilities as current maturities of long-term debts, current maturity finance lease obligations, interest accrued but not due borrowings, interest accrued and due on borrowings, income received in advance, unpaid dividends, application money received for allotment for the securities and due for a refund and interest accrued thereon. So you can take a screenshot of this. And then unpaid matured deposits and interest accrued thereon, unpaid matured debentures and interest accrued thereon, as well as some other payables are there. After that, in the balance sheet part is short-term provisions, where we have to see the amount shall be classified as provisions for employee benefits, other if there is, it has to be mentioned. Tangible assets are there, where we can see here the short-term provisions. After that, the part of assets is there, tangible assets. It is classified as land, building, plant, equipment, furniture, fixtures, vehicle, office equipments, other as well as assets under the list shall be separately specified under each class of assets. A reconciliation of gross and net carrying amount of each class of assets at the beginning and at the end of reporting period, showing additions, disposal, etc. Losses reveals the or losses or uh, reversal shall be disclosed separately, where sums have been written off on a reduction of capital or revaluation of assets, or where some have been added on revaluation of assets. So these are the tangible assets. After that, there are certain intangible assets. As you know, there are intangible assets called as goodwill, brands, trademarks, computer software, mastheads and publishing titles, mining rights, copyrights, patents and other intellectual property rights, services and operating rights, recipes, formulas, models, designs and prototypes, license and franchises. Other if is there, it has to be mentioned. A reconciliation of gross and net carrying amounts of each class of assets at the beginning and at the end of reporting period, showing additions and disposal. As these are the same as in case of the tangible assets and intangible assets also. After that, there are some non-current investments, where non-current investments shall be classified as trade investments and other investment, and further classified as investment property, investment in equity share, equity instruments, investment in preference um, shares, as well as investment in government or trust security, investment in debentures, bonds, mutual funds, partnership firms. Other non-current investment also are there, which have to be mentioned under each classification. Details shall be given of the names of bodies, corporate authorities also. Investment carried out other than at cost should be separately stated, specifying the basis of valuation thereof. The following class shall also be disclosed, that is aggregate amount of quoted investment and market value thereof, as well as aggregate amount of unquoted investment and aggregate provision for diminution of value of investment. After that, the part of balance sheet on the asset side is long-term loans and advances, where we have to classify it as capital advances, security deposits, loans and advances to related parties, given details thereof. Other loans and advances, which we have to specify the nature. The above shall also be separately subclassified as secured considered good, unsecured considered good, and doubtful. Allowances for bad and doubtful debts and loans and advances shall be disclosed over here. Loans and advances due by directors or other officers of the company, or any of them either severally or jointly with any of the person, or amounts due by firm or private companies respectively, in which any director, in partner or director or a member should be separately stated. So this is the long-term loans and advances in case of balance sheet. After that, some other non-current assets where long-term trade receivable shall be classified as secured, unsecured, again secured, considered good, unsecured considered good. Doubtful allowances for bad and doubtful debts shall be disclosed. Then debts due by directors or other officers. Then current investment, the second part of balance sheet, as we have already mentioned in the first video, that is current investment, which is headed under the current asset. In the current investment shall be classified as investment in equity, preference shares, government, trust, security, debentures, bond, mutual funds, partnership firms, other investments. Uh, the following shall be also be disclosed, that it's the basis of valuation of dividends, valuation of individual investment, aggregate amount of quoted investment and market value thereof, aggregate amount of unquoted investment, and aggregate provision made for diminution of in value of investment. So these are the non-current investment. Current investment. Then inventories. Under the head inventories, it comprises raw material, work in progress, finished goods, stock in trade, stores and spares, loose tools, others goods in transit. Mode of valuation shall be treated. Under the head trade receivable, the amount of trade receivable outstanding for a period exceeding 6 months from the date they are due for payment shall be separately stated. Trade receivable shall be subclassified as secured, unsecured. Trade receivable shall be subclassified as secured and considered good, unsecured and considered good, doubtful, allowances for bad and doubtful debts, and debts due by directors or any other officers of the company. When cash and cash equivalents, it's very simple. Cash, as you know, cash and cash equivalents may be classified as balance with the bank, checks, drafts, demand drafts, cash on hand. Others are earmarked balances with the banks. So these are the cash and cash equivalent. Later on, we have to study the uh, next part of balance sheet, that is short-term loans and advances. Short-term loans and advances shall be classified as loans and advances to related parties. Others specified the above shall also be subclassified, again secured, considered good, unsecured, considered good and doubtful. Allowances for bad and doubtful loans and advances shall be disclosed under the relevant heads. Then loans and advances due by the directors or other officers of the company, or any of them either severally or jointly with any other person, or amounts due by the firms or private companies respectively, in which any director is a partner or a director or a member shall be separately stated. The last part of balance sheet, that is other current assets, where this is all inclusive heading which incorporates current assets that do not fit into any other assets. So the assets which cannot be fitted in earlier head it should be headed over here. Contingent liabilities and commitment to the extent of not provided period. Contingent liability shall be classified claims against company and not acknowledged as a debt. Guarantees other money for which the company is contingently liable. Commitment shall be classified as estimated amount of contracts and uncalled liability as well as other commitments. So what is meant by contingent liability? The contingent liability shall be classified as claim against the company not acknowledged as debt. Guarantees other money for which the company is contingently liable. Commitment shall be classified as estimated amount of contracts remaining to be executed on on capital accounts and not provided for. Uncalled liability on shares and other investment partly paid other commitments if there is it has to be mentioned over here. The amount of dividend proposed to be distributed to the equity and preference shareholders for a period and related items or amount as per the per share shall be disclosed separately. Where in respect of an issue of security made for a specific purpose, it has to be mentioned this under this head. If if in the opinion of the board and any assets other than fixed assets and non-current investments do not have a value of realization in the ordinary course of business at least equal to the amount of at which they are stated, that fact that the board of that option shall be stated. So in this way we can see the pro forma of balance sheets and its subheading, that is share capital reserve and surplus, and what items are to be included in the balance sheet and its subheading. So with this I would like to say thank you very much. In the next video we will see in the pro forma of profit and loss account. Thank you very much.